Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's very special edition of the Xbox Factor podcast. I am your host, Mr. Boomstick XL, and I have... Wait a second. Are we even live? I don't even know. Wait a second. I don't see the live stream.
I see you.
Oh, you are? We are live. Okay, excellent. Well, listen, I'm sorry, folks. This has been a race to the finish line to try and get today's stream up and running. I got to tell you, it has been another static Monday with bombs being dropped. If you are an Xbox fan, all I can tell you is that right now you are smiling ear to ear like a Cheshire cat. We already have nearly 100 people in the chat. We're only 1 minute and 3 seconds into the show, and I can tell you that I believe not only is this going to be a record-breaking episode, we are going to put on one of the best shows that you're ever going to see, because quite frankly, the news that we have in front of us is groundbreaking. Now, I was able to put an incredible panel of gamers together to talk about what broke very early this morning, and we might even have a special guest or two show up as we continue. But let's get into the introductions. First of all, you know him by his voice and sniper killing skills, and you also hear him each and every week on the new episode that will be airing tonight of Primetime Gaming with Mr. Boomstick XL. Thanks for being here, Tempest Son. First of all, I love the new gamer pick that you had. I mean, who did that for you? And once again, welcome to today's special stream.
Yes, thank you, Boom. It's rare I can get out on anything other than the nighttime show, so this is a treat for me. Yeah, the new gamer pick is from Jay, Graphic God, and did an amazing job. He's repping my love for Resident Evil quite well, I'd say. So I'm definitely ready for the new one coming out. But yeah, it's exciting stuff. The news we're talking about. It seems like every other Monday, Phil's giving us something to get hyped over, and it is just I'm really excited to talk about it. So,
well, listen, it's great to have you here, and I certainly appreciate you being here and taking some time from your very busy work day, even if it's only 90 minutes, to talk about the unbelievable news. Next up, making his second appearance on the Double Barrel Gaming channel. You heard him a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if it was last week. Luke, I want to say thank you so much for being here. You obviously are a teacher, and with things going on in the world right now, you just so happen to be home. So when I threw the invite, you immediately said yes. Dude, it's great to have someone with your technical prowess on today's, I guess you can call it special stream of the Xbox news. Thanks for being here, dude.
Man, it is a pleasure. The circumstances for why I'm here may be a bummer, but I'm ecstatic to be here. Xbox dropped a bombshell of news on us. They did it 5 minutes after I dropped my episode, which made me chuckle. That's how it goes. But man, it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on again, bud.
Well, listen, it's great to have you back. And obviously, with the knowledge that you have, you're very technically savvy. So to have you break a lot of the big information down, I think there are going to be a lot of people very excited to hear what you have to say. And making his appearance once again, I think this is the first time, Archimedes, that you are on the Xbox Factor podcast all the way from Germany. I want to thank you for taking the time, dude. Welcome to this special stream.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I mean, when I saw the news and I saw that you are going to host a special Xbox Factor podcast, I directly tweeted at you that I want to join because there is a lot to talk about. And thank you for having me on the show.
Well, it's great to have you on, as always. And of course, now we're going to talk about someone that I respect, someone that is considered to be more than just a friend, someone I had the pleasure and honor to meet at last year's E3. You know him as Ains from Seasoned Gaming. Dude, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out. What do you think about this news?
What's up, everyone? Oh, man, I'm excited. Yeah, I'm in the middle of my work day here, working from home, and I was like, do I have any meetings right now? Okay, I can join this real quick and talk about some Xbox. So, super excited. A lot of these details, it's great to see them coming out in the public, and basically Xbox just being really, really transparent and, putting it all out there. And man, it's exciting. I love new hardware. I love getting into the tech specs, and looking forward to chatting.
Well, real quick, Ains, your mic sounds really bad. It sounds like it's stuttering, and there's like a bit of an echo. So maybe jump out and come back in.
Yep. Let me change my mic.
All right, you got it, dude. All right, so as Ains does that, I want to bring up some pictures because obviously I ran to try and put a show together from coming in at 9:30 this morning, and I want to put something up on the screen. Now, obviously, we got a lot of information to break down just on this picture alone. First of all, we got the full-on panel of what the chip looks like as it's firing in the Xbox Series X. And of course, this Phil Spencer changed his picture once again. Now, if you remember about a month and a half ago when he did it, it literally stopped the internet because it was the first time we got a chance to see what the chip looked like. And now he changed it once again. But it's not just because he changed the chip is what basically stopped the internet. It's the information along the picture changing that has everyone super, super excited. And he tweeted this. Proud to be a member of Team Xbox and what we are delivering for the next generation of gaming with Xbox Series X, more to come. And of course, everyone is running stories. But I want to talk about a particular story that I pulled from Windows Central regarding the Digital Foundry video, which I watched both of them twice. And I also watched a third video. Now, Tempest Sun, the name of the gentleman that did the video that you thought was better, what's his name again?
It's Austin Evans.
Austin Evans, yeah.
Yeah. That's his YouTube channel. He also started another channel called This Is, because it's a joke. He says, "Hey guys, this is Austin." So he made a whole channel called This Is. So both of them have videos on it, and it's just the way he did the video. It just had more personality, but it was more of a much closer look, if you will, at everything. So I don't know. I preferred that one, but they're all three of them are phenomenal.
Well, I'm going to say this. First of all, hats off to both Microsoft and Digital Foundry for getting together. And depending on who you ask, if you ask someone like, let's say, for instance, a D-Batch or a Colt Eastwood or a Dealer Gaming or even and anyone with the technical savvy that knows the inner workings of the PC, they will say, and again, I'm speaking for them, but I think I'm confident in saying that they would probably agree with me that they would consider Digital Foundry as the standard. And for Microsoft to set this up, to go to Digital Foundry the same way they did with the Xbox One X, proves to me that they have a tremendous amount of confidence in this next generation console. Now, I just want to read a couple of excerpts from the Windows Central's article. Normally, I don't cut and paste. I write my own material, but because this was so last minute, I was very limited to what I could write because I had to set up the stream, I had to set up the pictures, I had to get the guests. It was a lot of behind the scenes work to get this stream rolling. So of course, I'm going to credit the whatever I read that's directly from an article, I will credit it publicly because I don't take credit for something that's not my work. But again, this is directly from Windows Central, that article that's currently available on their website. And it says, this is coming from Digital Foundry. And this is what Digital Foundry wrote. Today, a lot of new Xbox Series X information was shared by many outlets and YouTubers. Digital Foundry wrote the following and confirmed that the early performance was similar to the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 2080. Now, the reason why that's important, and Luke, I'm going to go to you first. The reason why I think that that statement is kind of like the stake in the sand is because there were many in the PC master race community damning the possibility of this console being able to match an RTX 2080. And that, in fact, has been confirmed from Digital Foundry. When you hear that, Luke, what are your thoughts?
I think initially when I hear it, I try not to worry about it because I don't really care what it is the PC Master Race is saying about my console space, about where I'm having a good time. Plus, those are expensive cards. I mean, those are a couple $100 just for the cards alone that match theoretically the cost of this entire system. And that's the benefit of a console space, is the dollar to value gaming ratio. So didn't really factor in too much. And in watching Digital Foundry and Austin Evans and reading about all these specs that they're coming out here, I'm only encouraged by what it is the Series X looks to be doing and bringing to gamers, regardless just of specs and whatnot and technical specifications. I'm just excited to see what we've got here. The value to dollar looks incredible. Even though we don't know the price, you have to imagine like ranges, and it's nothing short of impressive.
Yes, it's unbelievably impressive, but I think what goes with exactly what you're saying and what makes me confident that this isn't, first of all, I'm going to tell you this right now, okay? If this somehow is a $600 beast, rest assured that I don't think that's the nail in the coffin for the amount of power. But because Phil Spencer has said many times that the Xbox Series X will not be out of position when it comes to price and power versus the PlayStation 5, I have a feeling that they have found a way to recoup whatever monies they're going to lose to get this console to launch at $499.99 US. Now, granted, I can't say for sure with the current world situation whether or not they're even going to launch on time, though I think Microsoft and I think Tempest, I'm going to go to you next before I read the excerpt from the article. You yourself believe that they wouldn't be showing this information if they weren't confident that we were going to have to wait until, let's say, February of 2021. You think that the console is launching this year?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think I don't know. I don't, people feel differently, about the, what going on right now. I feel like they got a handle on it. They are going about their business like nothing is happening. They might be having people work from home or something like that, but their drip feed of information is obviously not stopping. And, they're just not showing this thing. They are intimately showing this thing. They are letting these people. They actually made like a mock-up. If you watch the videos, that had that had magnets on it that wouldn't normally be there. And the reason they're doing that is so these guys can take this thing apart, put it back together again, so they could build their own Series X. And it's not just that they did that. If you look at the room, especially if you watch Austin Evans' video, you see more of the room in the background. Such a cool looking room, dude. And they are so proud of their design.
And they're all standing there. And, I got to tell you, Austin did an incredible job because it was almost, you could tell that he had that nervous laugh, but it was a nervous laugh of excitement. And here's something I want to show the folks, to find folks, if you didn't watch the video. This is a picture taken directly from Austin's YouTube where it's a close-up of the fan. And as you can see in the picture, there's a Master Chief helmet that's on the fan. And you brought to my attention that I guess I missed. Is there something else on the system?
Yeah, on the main board, there's actually an anaconda, clear as day. It's a snake on the board. It's an additional little Easter egg, meaning the codename Anaconda was right the whole time, which I don't think they've ever actually expressed. That's what the codename was, but that's clearly what it was because it's on the board now. So.
Listen, I could tell you this. Today is, again, it's one of those days that we almost have to, as gamers, walk on eggshells with Microsoft because we don't know when they're going to drop something. And this week, we do know GameStack is happening Wednesday and Thursday. Now, GameStack, it may not be, there's a lot of technical information that's going to be dropped, and this is what they were going to show at GDC. We're hearing that they may be doing something tomorrow as well. That's the rumor, which sounds extremely interesting. But Archimedes, again, I before I get into the actual article and I get everyone's opinion on it, I want to get your Archimedes, your opinion on just the joy of waking up on a Monday morning and finding out that Phil Spencer has once again stopped the internet single-handedly. What are your thoughts on that, dude?
It kind of feels like E3 dropped a little early this year. It is amazing. It's a brilliant move from Microsoft to keep themselves in the news. Yeah, with that steady stream of news, they are always in people's mind. Social media channels are full of Microsoft news, and this for weeks now. It's brilliant. And when I saw this, for me it was afternoon. Yeah, this afternoon, the news. I really started watching the videos, reading the articles. I was so excited to see that most of what we already suspected and that got leaked is now really confirmed, that console is going to be a beast. I don't think it will be above 500. I still think they will keep the price tag at $499 for that thing. And the news are just amazing. And it's not just that they revealed some technical specs, they also explained a lot about software features that are supported. They actually showed games running on the system. Well, no, not new games, but old games, how they enhance. It is incredible.
Yes, we're actually gonna get into the breakdown of what they showed, but real quick, Ains, before I get to you, dude, I want to just catch up on some of these super chats because they're coming in fast and furious. Elemental P drops a $2 super chat. Thank you for your generosity, but more importantly, dude, thank you for being here. He says, "Happy Monday. Xbox will play everything best." That is confirmed. Yes, Clutchman01 dropping a $2 super chat. Thank you for being here, Clutch. Really appreciate it, and of course, thank you for your generosity. He says, Xbox keeping our attention another 3 weeks. Yes, indeed. Notorious NX. Dude, thank you for the generosity of the $5 super chat. And he says, what if Series X is the base console and the Series Y is the Pro model? WCCF Tech hinted that in a recent article. What do I think? Well, I can tell you something right now. If there's something more powerful than this monster, call it a generation, or start singing the song "The Party's Over." Let's turn out the lights. The party is over. I don't know what else to say. Let me see. I got to just catch up on a few of them. I'm sorry for the slow. The chat is really going crazy. I want to thank the 215 people already here. Super appreciate it. The next super chat comes from LMNOP once again, who drops a $2 super chat. He says the assembly looks to be a machine assembled easy. Yeah, I mean, dude, the way that they broke that down, where they kind of just put it together, was pretty impressive. Ricardo Willis drops a $2 super chat. Thank you for that, dude, and thank you for being here. He says, happy to be back to Double Barrel Gaming. Yes, well, we're happy to have you, dude. Now, Ains, you yourself, you have a very impressive background when it comes to gaming, because quite frankly, I have used some of your articles for my shows, and I of course give you the proper respect and credit for it. Love what you guys do at Season Gaming, and for someone who does cover the industry professionally, as well as a fan who has some of the coolest statues I've ever seen when it comes to The Witcher. When you saw this news this morning, what were your thoughts, dude?
First off, can you guys hear me better?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, yeah. Very good. Sorry about that. Yeah, man, I'm excited. So I think, most of the guys on here who follow me, and what's up, everyone, by the way, sorry, I was kind of messing up the show early.
No, don't be silly.
I think everyone who kind of knows me knows, as you said, I appreciate that, Boom, very much. Like you said, pleasure to meet you last year in person. Yes. And had a good, great relationship, and we were always chatting kind of offline. It's this kind of stuff is what I live for, man. I love waking up and seeing, if not necessarily new stuff, fortunately, just because of the site and what I get into, some of this stuff I get ahead of time a little bit here and there, and I've talked about some of these things, but it's always great to see these official announcements, because it just puts any speculation and rumor to rest, right? There's no debating any of this at this point. So I think it was Archimedes that said, it was almost like a little E3, little Christmas morning this morning. And I just love it. Seeing anything new from a hardware perspective always gets me excited, especially when, and I've stressed this to people for a long time now, is that this upcoming generation, if you want to call it a generation, right?
these consoles, this console in particular, is going to push the boundaries far, far more than what we saw out of the Xbox One and PS4 launch. Those consoles were kind of mid-range, PC level when they launched. They were a little more budget, whereas this is really, really next-gen, pushing the boundaries of it. And just the fact that we're going to see some of the things we're going to see from a console gaming perspective have me incredibly excited.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Microsoft continues to retain market share value when it comes to next generation. Mind share value has completely look, again, this is not a dig at Sony. If you're here as a Sony fan, I want to just say, first of all, welcome. We're right now we're just a bunch of excited gamers, and no one is certainly going to go out of their way to take shots at Sony. The problem with the Sony situation is that them being as quiet as they has hurt them. And the more information Microsoft continues to put out there and the more quiet Sony continues to be, it's going to be very hard for them to get back up. I'm sorry to say, and again, this is we're not taking shots at Sony. I just wanted to be completely clear that if you are a Sony fan, and I'm one of them because I own everything Sony, and I'm talking about everything Sony, that I would like some information, and this just them being coy as they've been is quite disturbing. But let me continue with the article from Windows Central and the excerpt that I want to read. It says this: however, even basic ports, which barely use any of the Xbox Series X new features, are delivering impressive results. The Coalition's Mike Rayner and Colin Penty showed us the Xbox Series X conversion of Gears 5, produced in just 2 weeks. The developers worked with Epic Games in getting the Unreal Engine 4 operating on Series X, then simply upped all of the internal quality presets to the equivalent of PC Ultra, adding improved contact shadows and Unreal Engine 4's brand new ray tracing screen space global illumination. On top of that, Gears 5's cutscenes, while running at 30 FPS on the Xbox One X, were up to flawless 60 FPS on the Series X. We'll be covering more on that soon, but there was one startling takeaway. We were shown benchmark results on a 2-week-old unoptimized port already delivering very similar performance to an RTX 2080. Holy shit is all I can say. Now, the article continues with this. More technical fellow, okay, I don't want to read with that because that sounds silly. Microsoft Xbox system architect Andrew Goosen, added the following. When using ray tracing, the system can effectively tap over 25 T-flops of performance. Wow. Okay, and closing out the excerpt from the article, without hardware acceleration, this work could have been done in the shaders, but would have consumed over 13 teraflops alone. For the Xbox Series X, this work is offloaded onto dedicated hardware, and then the shader can continue to run in parallel with full performance. In other words, Series X can effectively tap equivalent to well over 25 T-flops of performance power while using ray tracing. Luke, I have to go back to you because you are someone that I now that we've met, personally, I know that you have a very serious technical prowess when it comes to knowing the ins and outs. When you hear that when they use the ray tracing on the Series X, it could potentially put out 25 T-flops of performance power. What are your thoughts on that, dude?
That is an immense number, and it certainly eclipses everything we'd heard about Series X up to this point. So my eyebrows raise, and I think I want to see more of Austin Evans and Digital Foundry talking about that myself before I even draw conclusions. But we do know that if you even compare the Xbox One X to an Xbox One and an Xbox One S, it starts to stack up rather quickly how much more powerful the One X is. So whether or not they're utilizing 12 teraflops or moving up exponentially in certain cases with certain abilities, even with ray tracing, my eyebrows raise at that number, because when you look at what a teraflop means, it's a combination of a number of different performance cues. So I really and truly, I even want to know more, and I want to see it in action before I pass full judgment on it.
Right. I mean, that makes perfect sense. I mean, and I think that as we, first of all, this news just broke a couple hours ago. I think my time. I think the article was written at 5 a.m, and I'm not sure where that was written, but I know that I started seeing this the breakout at about 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. So I mean, let me go to Tempest, son. Tempest, obviously you are someone that not only plays on console, but you play on PC, so you kind of know your way around the PC master race. When you hear that with the ray tracing being what it is, they could potentially give gamers who purchase this, the Xbox Series X, hopefully in November, up to 25 teraflops of performance power. I mean, we're talking high-end PC at the home console level.
Yeah, I think the way I took that figure is that would be if you tried to. This is the way I took it. I could be totally wrong and take a huge L here, but the way I took it is if you were to try to just brute force ray tracing without the separate, I guess I don't want to call it a chip or whatever they're doing, the hardware-based ray tracing, they're offsetting the ray tracing on that chip, and they're allowing the rest of the game to like move on, so to speak. I don't know how to really describe it, but that's the way I took it. Like if you were to just brute force ray tracing, you would need like a 25 terabyte machine in order to pull that off. But by having it at the hardware base, they're able to offset certain whatever the game is doing to certain like chips or different pieces of hardware, if you will. That's the way I took it anyway. So I mean, it sounds impressive. We'll have to look more into it. It's still new information, but I think that was something that was actually reported by Digital Foundry themselves. Like they said it. So there's got to be something to it. But yeah, no, this whole thing is wow, extremely impressive, man. I don't even know what to say. I mean, there was a rumor going around that there'd be a separate audio chip, and there is I think I found something on the board that runs audio by itself. They went into that, how it was going to be like real time emulate, like sound the way that would be, and that's pretty important with everybody running with nice headphones and Dolby Atmos, or if you're fortunate enough to have like a Dolby Atmos setup in like a home theater, environment. That's going to be extremely important for games just as well, just like graphics and stuff. And when you were reading that paragraph, one thing that stood out to me is unoptimized demo pretty much with Gears 5.
Done in 2 weeks, by the way.
Done in 2 weeks. And so that's pretty much just like copy pasta and then pressing the go button practically. I mean, if you don't optimize this stuff, so the fact they're getting that level of performance without any optimizations is a massive deal. And also I looked it up while you were talking about it, saying it very quickly resembled the performance of the RTX 2080. Not one really, I guess, licensed by the cheapest I could find pretty much for 2080 was $541 on Newegg.
Yikes.
That's for just the card, man.
That's the value of that console space, though. It's valued $1. I mean, they're packing all that in, selling it maybe at a loss depending, but that's the value of that console space. We don't have to worry about those cards, and we're still getting performance that is just monstrous at this point.
Yeah. And can I go into the, are you going to have like a separate section for the quick resume, or can I jump on that?
No, we're actually, we're going to bring that back around. Yeah. We're going to bring that back around because I want to fill the show. I want to break it down, in order so everyone can understand. Cause I'm learning just as much as anybody else, and I'm putting on the freaking show. But real quick, Ains, I want to go to you next on this because obviously, the demo that they showed, and it's funny because that coincides with what Phil Spencer tweeted out about a week and a half ago when he showed Gears running on the X on the Xbox One X, and there was a blurry picture off to the right that you couldn't see, and I'm assuming that was Gears running on the Series X. And he put that out there. Again, these little nuggets that they keep, like the breadcrumbs they keep laying down for the fans, and then they just completely blow us out of the water. When you hear that this using ray tracing, we could see upwards of 25 teraflops of performance power, and they're comparing this on early specs without any optimization, like Tempest was saying. comparable to a 2080. What are your thoughts on that, dude?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I think, as Tempest said, the way I understand it, and again, I'm not a master of this stuff, but the way I understand it is because you've got that dedicated hardware chip, which is, been talked about kind of offline for a little while, right? You can offload all of that ray tracing need, because if you know anything about ray tracing, right, trying to do it on the software side is very labor intensive. So the fact that you can offload that, still implement it without any negative impact on the game engine itself is super, super impressive. I'm a huge Gears fan, so when I see things, you can talk 25 teraflops and the numbers are the numbers, so they're vastly impressive, right? But the proof is in what you see on the screen. And so I'm a huge Gears fan. Gears 5, they're already talking about, without optimization, as someone was just mentioning, they already have Gears 5 running, and I've got the quote right here, right? They've got it running at 4K at PC Ultra settings. Already running over 100 frames per second.
That's unreal.
and it says it has oh my god, I just lost the quote. But some of the lighting effects and the particle effects are actually higher than on PC. And this is before optimization, right? So the fact that you could have a game like Gears 5, which I know all of us, I think, have played it, right, is absolutely stunning to begin with.
It is right now, currently on the X. It's one of the best looking games for the Xbox. It might even be one of the best looking games this generation.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable as it is, right? So imagine that sharper, better looking ultra settings at 120 frames, fully optimized. It's kind of unbelievable. And I believe someone else, Tempest, might have been you as well, said, they're not even to the point yet where developers are really diving into this thing. This is still very early. They're basically using raw power at this point to see what they can do. But as anyone who knows about consoles and kind of long-term development, right, over time, they're going to continue to optimize as the tool sets become more mature. It's crazy. If you go back to last year, Boom, when we were sitting there in the crowd at the Xbox conference, and you heard, you saw the video and you saw Kareem and Mike and some of the guys talking about, we're seeing things that we've never seen before. This is exactly what they were talking about. You're pushing console games to a level that it was never even fathomable a couple years ago. And it's awesome.
It is not only awesome, dude. We are, as console gamers, and I'm notoriously very public about being a console game. Even if someone would offered me to buy me a $3,000 custom made PC, I'd be like, no thanks, it's okay. I don't need it, because I wouldn't. It would literally sit here and collect dust. I respect the PC master race. I like that people have the ability to, if you have the financials, to really put the dollar behind your rig, and that's awesome. But for me, I'm I'm a simpleton. I like the plug and play. I like, putting in the power cord, putting in the USB, and going. And it seems as if we are going to get again, whether that be next year, which I don't think is going to happen. I still think we're going to get it in November, maybe even December. Who knows? But if it does launch this year, I think it's safe to say, or even assume, that as console gamers, we are going to get the best bang for your buck in anything we've ever seen. Again, I could this system be $599? Sure. Do I think it is? No. I think it's going to be $499, and I think that Sony knows that it's going to be $499, which is why they are waiting on pretty much giving the fans any information regarding specs and price and power, because I think that they might have underestimated the determination that Microsoft had to wipe the mud off their face, get up off the ground, and go into the next generation, looking for a fight. Real quick, Archimedes, I want to go to you next, dude, because obviously, if you watched some of the videos, they talk about Gears of War 5 running. And, Ains actually was nice enough to actually get the quote, which I actually didn't have, regarding it running at complete 4K at over 100 frames per second, unoptimized. that for that kind of performance on a console done live for everyone to see, it is absolutely unbelievable what we're seeing. What are your thoughts on this, dude?
Yeah, it is really impressive. You touched on it a little bit earlier. When the PS4 and the Xbox One launched, they were not really on par with high-end PCs. Yeah, they were compared to low or mid-tier PCs, and this is definitely a different story with these Xbox Series X now. I mean, from all what we know by now, the system is incredibly well balanced. Yeah, there is, so far we didn't discover a bottleneck. Yeah, we have a proper CPU this time that matches the high performant GPU. We have memory bandwidth in there that helps transition all the in between the two. So the whole system is very well balanced. And hearing that Gears 5 is running at over 100 frames per second with ultra settings, this is insane if you consider that. Gears 5 is already one of the best looking games this generation, yeah, running on the Xbox One X, and I really want to see what they can add with optimized ray tracing capabilities, yeah, because apparently the ray tracing capabilities in the RDNA 2 architecture is very performant. If Digital Foundry compares it to 13 teraflops of compute power on a regular shader, yeah, that is an insane capability for a graphics card in a console.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to see underneath the hood of this monster. Real quick, before I move on to the next topic, Elemental P drops an additional $2 super chat. He says Series X will play everything best. Yes, no doubt about that, dude. And JD Gamer, hey, dude, thank you for being here. And of course, thank you for your generosity. He drops a $5 super chat. He says Digital Foundry said that the devs have to have the metal access to the RT cores. What if the devs just decide to use that additional power for another way? Wow, the visuals. Yeah, dude, look. First of all, the visuals, I think, on the newer games, and I'm kind of, you know what, I got to be honest with you guys, and I you know what, this is just not really the next topic. I just want to get everyone's yes or no answer on this. With the more information that we get on the Series X, for you personally, I know for me, getting all of the tech specs out of the way, getting the console name, what it looks like, how it runs, the actual performance, I'm happy to get all that out of the way, because at the end of the day, this could be a monster of a console. And if it had no games, which we know that's not going to happen, it would just be, again, the same tribulations that Microsoft suffered during this generation. But we know that the games are coming. Could you imagine what the game's going to look like? So my question, very simply, and I'll go in order. I'll start with Luke. Are you happy that Microsoft is getting all of the technical aspects of the X out of the way so they can just focus on games later on this year?
100% yes. The fact that they're giving these specs while allowing other people that don't work for Microsoft to come in and talk about it, respected people in the industry to go hands-on already with, prototype builds and with early builds of the Series X, it makes me ecstatic, because that means that down the line, I don't have to worry about that. I can take in their thoughts and inputs, and I can look at what I care about most, which is games. And there is going to be no shortage of that. I know my library travels with. I know they've got new stuff coming. Phil Spencer said in his tweet, there's more to come. We know they've got multiple days worth of stuff in Microsoft Game Stack. Yes, I am ecstatic. This is the right way to do it. I love that it's different. I love that it's new, and it only increases my hype levels.
Yes, no, I absolutely agree. So let me go to Tempest Sun. Tempest, same question I posed to Luke, I'll pose to you. Are you happy that Microsoft, Phil Spencer, and Redmond are getting these specs kind of out of the way? Again, it's a great news bomb, and it's great for Xbox fans. But I really want to see the games, and I think what they're doing is being aggressive of getting the specs out there, letting people put this thing together, let people take it apart, let people see the chips and see things running, which we're going to talk about in a second regarding the quick resume. Are you happy for them to get all of this technical nonsense out of the way so Neanderthals like myself could just look at the game and go, ooh, game, I want it?
Absolutely, yeah, and a couple things. One, for me, when it comes down to like E3 stuff like that, the least amount of time talking about what they're going to do with services or the hardware. I love seeing the hardware, but I've always wished they would have done something just like what they just did. Get this stuff out of the way. And
Yes.
second thing is by announcing all these specs, announcing their plans for like the VRS. Like I was going to say that about Gears 5 too. That's when they say unoptimized, I guarantee you they're not using anything with the variable rate shading and stuff, which is supposed to boost performance. So, I mean, I don't want to go on a tangent about that, but like that could lead to unoptimized that game 4K 120 frames per second. I think it's a possibility, to be honest with you. But anyway, so like when they announce these specs, when you see these new games come out, it seems feasible. I don't think you're going to have to ask that question is this real? Or is this just like a tech demo? What is this? Is it actually going to look like this? With specs like these, I'd say whatever they show you, it's probably going to be a really big indication of this is what it's going to look like. I mean, even though it was framed weird and it was only 24 frames per second, yada, yada. When they showed Hellblade 2, there's a lot of people like, well, is that real? Even Digital Foundry at the time was like, this terrain's loading in too quickly. We don't have this. Well, of course you don't have this because it's new technology. With that SSD that they're using and being able to pull stuff from that so quickly, maybe now you can stream in terrain that quickly. You know what I'm saying? So I just think by them doing this, we're not going to have to question whatever it is that they're showing. I mean, if it looks like real life, well, then maybe, yeah. But I mean, if it looks even like it did in Hellblade 2, that trailer, I'll say that, I believe it. So,
yeah, me too.
Project Mara, that was the one that all threw us off with Ninja Theory, right? When we didn't know that it was a real.
Yeah, you couldn't tell that was a picture of the staircase or that was actually that was rendered, and that was rendered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just listen. Great time to be a gamer, especially now. Great time to be an Xbox gamer. Ains, I want to get your opinion on this. For you personally, being that someone that covers this professionally with your incredible site, are you happy that Microsoft is kind of getting the technical specs of the Series X out of the way so that when later on the so-called digital E3 event does happen, even though it feels like E3 already, it could be just focused on the games we're going to be playing?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think they're approaching this the right way, in the sense that this is like a slow drip, right? So you're keeping your fan base engaged for months on end. We don't have to rehash what happened with the Xbox One back in 2013, and we have all talked about it ad nauseum. But this is a different team, different hardware, different focus, and I think what's most impressive here is, and I know many of us have talked about it, is really just the confidence. It's nice to see Xbox being confident again and not on their back feet. So yeah, I think this is the way to do it. You get into the April-May time frame where you can start to set your final plans for whatever E3 is going to be. Obviously, it's not going to be local now, to be digital. But everyone already knows what the console looks like, what it, power-wise, and they know everything ahead of time. You go into E3, then you're going to focus on three main things, right? Release date, price point, and games.
Yes.
And release date and price point won't take long. So there's going to be an awful lot of games shown. And I think more than anything, you're going to see some of the highlights, particularly as everyone knows, right? You're going to see Forza Motorsport, whether or not they call it 8 or something different. And of course, Halo Infinite really be showcases for this, but I absolutely expect a couple surprises, but they're going to come out ready to flex, the power of this thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And closing out this particular portion of today's incredible special stream, Archimedes, let me get your opinion on this. Obviously, we've gotten a lot of information, and the information that continues to flow has really given us a picture of what the console is. For you personally, are you happy to get all of the technical information dropped the way it's been dropped by Phil and Redmond, and so that when we do have this digital E3 event, it's going to focus on just what games we're going to be playing when this launches later in this year?
Oh yeah, I'm really happy about that. I think it is a very smart move. Ainsley already touched on it. They keep the mind share through all the media sites and social media by doing it this way, and they give the whole technical specifications time. Because I think if you drop the specs during an event like E3, it is a bit too much for most people, yeah, to catch up on that. What does it actually
Yes.
mean, and so on. And now you have these experts like Digital Foundry explaining it to everyone. You have Austin Evans, and expect over the next few days a lot of other experts explaining everything to everyone. Everyone knows now what is in the system, and now let's focus on the games. This is absolutely amazing, and I wonder when we will start seeing next-gen games, because you also have to consider third-party publishers, yeah? They want to show their games, but if the hardware and the consoles are not revealed, they cannot show the games running on these consoles. Yeah, and of course, for instance, Ubisoft wants to show the next Assassin's Creed running on next-gen hardware, not on the old hardware. And with putting these specs out there, I think it is a very smart move, and I hope we get to see a lot of games running on that system very soon.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that most of the third-party developers have the final specs or close to it in dev kits. I wouldn't be surprised if
Sure.
they're working with it right now. I mean, Microsoft has a great relationship with most people in the industry, and they have been the most transparent, at least in 2020, on what their plans are for this monster of a console. Now, I want to move on to something I know Tempest Sun is very excited to talk about, and that's the quick resume. But I kind of just want to start off with talking about not only the confirmation of the NVMe SSD drive, but the fact that it's going to have expandable storage that plugs into the back. It looks like it looks like the size of a matchbook. Why this is impressive is because if you remember a couple of weeks ago, I don't know who it was, and even if I did, I wouldn't call them out by name, because you know what, everyone's entitled to their opinion. They had many of these sites were running with the stories that they pulled from the 4chan forums or Reddit for the so-called insiders that claimed Microsoft was using old SSD parts, that it was going to be slower than the PlayStation 5. And it turns out that the NVMe SSD drive that's in this beast is top of the line, once again proving that the value proposition from what it costs to put this thing together, as opposed to what you would have to pay if you were building this for your PC Master Race, is leaps and bounds different. And I want to start with Tempest Sun, because I know you've been chomping at the bit. First of all, we've got a chance to see the quick resume running. And each of the games, even though they were older, they were games that would be playing on the Xbox Series, Xbox One X, as opposed to the Series X. There weren't new games. There was like a 4 to 5 second transition, and it was snappy. What are your thoughts on that, dude?
Okay, so this I'm going to give you a snapshot of my gaming experience over the last few days, especially since Ori and the new Warzone for Call of Duty dropped pretty much on the same day, right? Well, a day later, I think it was like 2 days later, they released the Juggernaut edition for State of Decay 2, right?
Yes.
So this quick resume always sounded cool on paper. I didn't really ever pay much mind to it. I'm like, yeah, whatever, cool. Because, sometimes now starting tomorrow, I'll probably just be playing one game a lot, but it changes. Sometimes you bounce between things and sometimes you just play one game. Well, recently, playing with my wife, Warzone's only 3 people. So we only play it when my wife and I have somebody to play with. So we can jump on at a moment's notice. And that means stopping State of Decay K2, and when she wants to stop playing, because I play that multiplayer with her, I'll jump on Ori. So no lie, I've been hopping between these 3 games constantly over the last few days. If you add up how many times I've swapped games, the load time, if you were to add all that up, I've probably spent 45 minutes to an hour the last few days just loading up these separate games. And so when I saw that quick resume, especially for me, because I'm playing State of Decay 2 recently, they showed it, man. And not only do they show it, but Austin Evans on his video, he resumed it. And then in that game, when you turn on multiplayer, it tells you session being created, or creating session, meaning it's open for multiplayer, meaning it's connecting to the servers, right? So he resumed that game, and he made a comment, oh, we're good to go, like on multiplayer. Like, it not only did it resume the game, but he was instantly back into a position where somebody could hop into his game. So that quite literally means you could be playing, say, Forza or Halo, whatever, and somebody says, hey, man, I want to do some stuff on my town and State of Decay, right? Or, you know, I want to help you out, whatever. You could literally just hit the menu, go to the game, and quite literally 5 to 6 seconds later, be right where you left off, and then somebody can instantaneously join your game or you can join their game. On top of that, we saw the actual load speed differences on State of Decay 2. And let me tell you, that game takes forever to load. That is one of the issues with that game. It does take forever to load. And that person, his game was loaded and he was looting stuff within, I think it was like 7 or 8 seconds. And he was just in there playing the game. So you add all these things up, and like at first I was kind of excited for the faster loading and for the quick resume, but actually seeing it happen, we're not going to be able to live without this as console gamers after we try it. So it's a huge feature that I didn't know was huge until I saw it in motion. So yeah.
No, it's pretty impressive how he was going back and forth, and I think he had 5 games.
It was 5.
Yeah,
Yep.
a total of 5 games that he was going back and forth, and it was seconds. It was seconds. Luke, I want to go to you next on this because obviously the confirmation of the superior and new hardware regarding the SSD drive is impressive in itself. Yes, it's only 1 terabyte. It's only 1 terabyte, which is fine. But the expanded storage, this is something that a lot of people were speculating was happening, wasn't happening. We weren't sure what, was it a dev kit? Was that for something else? And we got the confirmation, and then we got a chance to even see what it looks like. A 1 terabyte a little chip. It, again, looks like a book of matches that just plugs in to the back of it. But what's interesting is that it's not like your regular USB, 8 teraflop, drive that you can put your stuff on. It's literally going to work in tandem as if it's doubling the storage. So if you obviously the Series X is going to launch with 1 terabyte, right? This is going to double the storage. Again, they didn't talk about price, which is, we don't know how much you think is going to be, but the fact that it's going to work like it's literally inside of the system is impressive in itself. What are your thoughts on the confirmation of the newer drive being used for this monster?
I love the idea of the expandable storage. I'm a little concerned that it's proprietary because my mind flashes to PS Vita and how those memory cards and the expensive nature of that. It scares me a little bit on that respect, but the fact that it's an internal SSD now being kind of external compartmentalized in a certain way, that expansion port, for lack of a better term, will give you identical performance to the internal drive. So I like that. It's also going to be helping with Series X optimized games for its best performance. It's encouraging. I like it. I do worry about the cost for given how much Seagate tends to charge for that amount of memory in that kind of a drive for the SSD. So I'm encouraged. I'm excited by it. I do hope that it's not cost prohibitive for people to buy into it. It's not, $200 plus for a chipset or $150 plus. I hope we're able to expand comfortably as we would like to, and that it's not required down the line. So again, I worry, but I'm also so happy to see that because it's going to be faster than my USB plug-in external drive.
Which is slow as hell.
Oh, absolutely. And it's simple. It is approachable for those who aren't tech savvy, tech minded. They know, all right, here, I've got this thing and it slots in and it's simple. So I think there's a lot of approachability in that. Again, it all comes down to cost for me.
Yeah, cost is going to be, look, I'll put it to you this way. I don't necessarily think that they are going to try and charge $200 or $300 for memory when the console is going to be $500 out of the box. You know what I'm saying? Like it wouldn't make any sense. I think it would be for me anyway, certain negativity towards the system. You know what I'm saying? Sure, you can. I think the way that they explained it is that you're going to have to use, because the SSD drive is going to use it's going to be a factor in playing your games. I think you're going to logistically have to have your games loaded onto the console, or of course the expanded memory. Either one of those those platforms, so your game runs the way it's supposed to run, because it's going to run based on what the SSD drive does, what that piece of hardware does for the games, as opposed to, and I don't think it's really going to be that big of a deal. Like if you wanted to move games, to and from your expandable hard drive, that it's gonna hinder you in any way. But I do agree, the concern is of the price. That's the one key factor that I'm actually hoping that they completely do a separate show for. I hope that we get a chance to see the Xbox Series S in May, along with getting an official release date or a semi-official release date, and at least give us the price effectively, if there is a second console, how inexpensive it's going to be, what it looks like, and what's this monster going to cost. Because again, I'm still in the belief that it's going to be $499.99 USD. And if it is, I think that the PC Master Race is going to have a comparable. I'm not saying it's going to beat your $3,000 rigs. I'm saying comparable for the price of $500, and that in itself will be ultra impressive. Now, Ains, I want to get to you next on this, because again, we have to. I don't like talking console war BS, but we have to talk about it because it was a big deal. Big sites were running this. Microsoft using old SSD tech, PlayStation 5 faster, right? That's the headlines. I didn't make this shit up. That's what was happening. For you to know that it's now confirmed to be using top of the line SSD technology, and that this could be just as fast or faster than the PlayStation 5 at this point, because we don't know much about the PlayStation 5. Are you happy to get all of this information regarding the storage?
Yeah, and again, to be honest, some of this information around the NVMe drive and how fast it is has been out there in some form. It goes without saying, and I'm not calling anyone specifically out, but there's plenty of people out there spouting off nonsense that have no idea what they're talking about. So, right. Yeah, I mean, this is state of the art as state of the art is today, right? In fact, I just built a new PC not less than a month ago, and I have the fastest hard drive. I have an NVMe M2 drive in it, 1 terabyte.
What did that cost you?
That specific part, I want to say 130-ish. I think they're in the build. I'm going off of memory. I could be wrong, but yeah, it is blazing fast, and it's amazing to think. I can boot up my computer from literally off and be at the home screen in seconds. It's ridiculously fast, and that's great. And so we've known some of this information in the Series X, all the nonsense we heard. Nothing to worry about. They're both going to be ultra fast. I did want to touch on, from a storage perspective, I share the exact same concerns. I think it was Tempest that was speaking to. Two concerns really is that you've got 1 terabyte on board and 1 terabyte expandable. Right. And, 2 terabytes, I use a 1 terabyte external SSD on my X1X today. And I find for the most part that holds, 10 to 15 of my main games that I'm playing. But we all know that game size is increasing, right? I mean, they're going to be upwards of 120 in next generation for sure. Exactly. And so, you do get kind of concerned that, okay, that looks good today. What does it look like 2 years from now, 3 years from now? Is 2 terabytes, even with the expanded drive, going to be enough? And I share the same concern about price. If you have to buy this proprietary Seagate drive, what's that look like? But there's some really interesting things that are being done here too. I just want to call out, there's a ton of information out there. Digital Foundry actually put up their written article on Eurogamer today, which really, really goes a deep dive into the specs. So if you're into that tech and really into it, that's up right now. And they talk about how, the Series X has the capability to basically store in real time 100 gigabytes of game assets that are instantly accessible to the developer. So if you think about texture load in, things of that nature, which are really kind of compute, prohibitive at times, there's more optimization to this box and the memory solution here that people haven't even really talked about yet.
Yeah, it's very impressive. And yes, I did see that article. I did not get a chance to read it because obviously it's a big article, but good on them for putting that out there on top of the videos, because I'm sure it's going to get a tremendous amount of traffic. I mean, again, this is just, I said it at the beginning and I said it a couple of Mondays ago, this is just a static Monday where if you turned on the news this morning, you heard that the stocks took a massive hit already, and that there are more cases of, you know, the situation going on. And it's pretty impressive that Microsoft would still find a way to kind of calm the fears of gamers by putting out news that we can get away from the real world shenanigans, if you will. And this is as big news as we've had for gaming, folks, for gaming in 2020. And it seems as if, Ains, that Microsoft just refuses to take their foot off the gas. And I have to say, I am very impressed with the way they're doing things. And again, I don't necessarily know who is the one that is running this show. I mean, I can easily say, you know, we look back to Cindy Walker with her suggestion of going, you know, full throttle for the Game Awards. We can look back and see the rehiring of Jarrett West and what he brings to the table, what he brought to the table from the 360, what he did for Netflix, and now he's the guy leading the charge for Series X. I'll put it to this way, Ains, and I'll get your opinion on this in a second. There's been a seismic change in the way Microsoft does their business, especially with retaining market mind share, I should say, and it's impressive. Anything you'd like to add regarding what I just said?
No, other than I agree. And if we're being honest, right, Microsoft and Xbox division as part of Microsoft benefits from Microsoft being the biggest company in the world, right? They have the capability to withstand market fluctuations and many other things on the market. So, there's still concerns about production channels here and distribution. But in terms of saying, all of what's going on in the world is not impacting our direction here, I agree. It's very impressive. And it's nice that they have the capability to do that. Plus, for those, if we really want to get into it, they were also one of the first from Nadella on down to kind of react to the work from home and pay people who can't work from home. And they're a very different company now than they were even a decade ago. And Nadella has made fantastic changes at Microsoft. They're doing everything right. They're firing on all cylinders. That goes for both Microsoft and Xbox, and it's impressive to see. And I hope that other companies kind of learn something from them.
Yeah, that's a great point. And of course, Archimedes, as we close out the SSD talk and the quick resume, which I think everybody's impressed with. I mean, me myself, I don't like to play a lot of games at once, but it would be pretty incredible to be able to go back from the Division 2, Call of Duty, Warzone, and Ori, which are the 3 games I'm currently playing, in a snap of a finger. You're talking about anywhere between 3 and 6 seconds, and they showed it. Both Digital Foundry showed it, and they had the timer going during both videos, and they also had it on the other video that we talked about earlier, where it was just live right there. He switched back and forth, no problem, and it was very impressive. For you, are you happy to know that the technology, or at least the SSD that they're going to be using in the Series X, isn't the rumored old technology, and it's the new top of the line model in regards to SSD? But what are your opinions on the expanded storage that has been confirmed?
Yeah, well, I had an intensive Twitter discussion about that the possible expansion of storage about 3 weeks ago, because I posted on Twitter that my guess is that this mystery slot on the backside is for such an expanded storage. So call it. But I had a couple of interesting arguments brought up there. If Microsoft is really selling the Series X for $499, they will sell it with a loss, and they have to somehow make up for that loss. And I think this expanded storage is one way for them to make up the loss they take in the actual console sales. Yeah. Well, am I happy about that? I don't know. It depends on the price for these memory cards, but in the end, I'm happy to see them, because the message basically is games will have to run off the SSD. They won't run off an external USB drive. Yeah,
Right.
and that means that the games will take full advantage of this very fast NVMe SSD now. And this is something that absolutely makes me happy. And that quick resume and switching in between multiple games, will come in very handy. Just the other day, I was playing Ori, of course, by myself. Yeah, and then I got an invite to a party. Had to switch games, load up and boot up later Ori again, and jumping in between these kind of games. This is going to be awesome. Yeah, so I'm really happy about it. Let's hope that the price for these expansions are not too high, and I expect down the line we will get more than 1 terabyte expansion cards. Yeah, in a year or two we will get 2 terabyte, 4 terabyte, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the price of the 1 terabyte is going to be what a lot of people are going to be looking at. And I just, maybe because I have a tremendous amount of confidence in the way Microsoft is approaching the new generation, completely tiptoeing away from the landmines and staying out of harm's way of what doomed them in in this particular current generation. And again, if Phil Spencer himself didn't say, that they are confident they're going to beat Sony not only in price but power, then there would be a lot of room for, I guess, questioning on where they're going to go. But because he has been so adamant about that, has said that numerous times in a ton of interviews that he has done, is what gives me confidence that I think that everything that they do moving forward with the Xbox Series X and, of course, the S, if that is a thing, which, of course, dealer and many people in the industry believe it is, this is going to be not only a different generation for Microsoft, they are looking to be the bully, if you will, just based on the fact that they're going to have power. They could potentially have price. They could potentially have 2 SKUs. And already, and we've heard this, and this is what gets me excited as a gamer who has a TV that's capable of running at 120 frames per second, to hear that unoptimized Gears 5, which is currently, and I don't think anyone will disagree with me, one of the best looking games this generation, could be running at 100 plus frames per second at 4K, gets me completely hot and bothered in the best way possible. You want to add something else to that?
No, other than I have to agree. It's they are so confident right now. It is really a joy to see them come out and answering all the questions that gamers desire. They get a great hardware coming. They have now enough game studios coming. We know the games are in the pipeline, and if they release the console this year, whether it be October, November, December, whatever, they have a couple of months to bridge, and we now know that they will bridge it with showing us games, and this is something that really makes me excited for the future of Xbox.
Yeah. Okay.
Guys, somebody want to add something?
Yeah. I'm sorry, Luke.
No, you're good. You want to go for it, man?
Yeah, sure. I'll make it real quick. I just wanted to say the reality of what's going to end up happening is, like Archimedes said, he's playing, Ori and a couple other things, just like I am, realistically. And one of those things is like 130 gigs as far as Modern Warfare is concerned. So
yes,
but even with 8 terabyte, it's enough to fit 4 to 5 games, probably 6. I mean, even if there's some smaller games in there, you're still going to be able to plug in your external drive. And I imagine the process of transferring games to and from the external to the SSD will probably be way quicker than just re-downloading the game. So if you don't want to pop the money right away for that little SSD card, the other thing has to be said, stuff goes down in price. It's going to be at its peak price the first year this thing comes out. You might just have to do a little bit more shifting of games, but as time goes on, the price of that little card is going to go down. Like Archimedes said, you could wind up with, I don't know if this is going to happen, but you could possibly end up with like a 3 to 4 terabyte couple years down the road for much cheaper than what you might even spend for like your 1 terabyte card. You know what I'm saying?
Just to add to that, there are a lot of folks. Listen, I am not as technical savvy as maybe some people on here. I know what I'm talking about. I read a lot, so I completely understand, right? I couldn't build my own PC, but I understand the, what goes into doing it. And I'm going to say this. We have to take into account in business, when you are a company as big as Microsoft, and let's say, for instance, they are working closely with AMD, certainly from what we understand, more closer than Sony has, where they have been already confirmed as being co-engineering partners on the chip, as opposed to Sony having input in what AMD is doing, taking nothing away from what the PlayStation 5 is going to be. But we don't have any information, so we have to turn our focus on to Microsoft. If in fact there is, let's say, for instance, the Xbox One, the Xbox Series S, it does exist, right? We're hearing that it's going to be very similar. It's going to be obviously less powerful, and it's probably going to be, a 1440p 60 FPS system. That's probably what it's going to do at max specs with the newer games, because it's going to be a lesser powerful console. But the reason why all of these different things that Microsoft is doing is because they're going to be ordering 2 times the amount of chips and hardware parts than Sony is going to be doing, because they're launching with 2 SKUs. And that goes same thing with the memory. They've teamed up with Seagate, which is probably the best memory maker out there. Now, some people may disagree with me and say, no, boom, I like this one better, or I like that one. And I'm not going to argue with you. I happen to really like Seagate. All of my storage, my 14 terabytes that I have, is all Seagate, and it works seamlessly, no problem. Sure, it's a little slow because it's USB based, but it's all Seagate nonetheless. If Microsoft is going to make the the hard drive that you can plug in and out and take on the go with you, rest assured that it's going to be affordable. And I think that because they're going to be looking to team up with Seagate, I don't think they're going to clobber the gamer. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be $50 out of the gate. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that if you want to expand your memory, maybe it's $100. Guess what? I'm buying it. But Luke, would you like to add anything to this?
Yeah, absolutely. There have been a couple words that we've repeated, some of which I brought up, some of which we just keep going back to because we're talking about storage, and that is confidence and cost. For them to come out amidst the crises that we're facing in the very real world and be confident enough to show this suggests that they're not worried about manufacturing on a mass scale. So that is a confidence booster for me as a gamer and strictly on a consumer basis. Yes. The other part is we keep mentioning cost, and that is a very real concern for all the reasons that we've already gone through. But what we've not brought up amidst all of this and amidst all these sizes for these new games that are operating in 4K, 130 gigs, we only got 1 terabyte. Amidst all that, the words that we've not brought up are XCloud. And I think we'd be foolish to ignore the very real possibility that our systems, be it Xbox One S and X or Xbox Series S, X, what have you, the ability for them to run XCloud would likely be a feature that, if not there at launch, will come very quickly. And so if we are concerned about perhaps having these massive games on our hard drives or on our expandable storage, the ability to play a game off XCloud might be beneficial to have in there. I too have been playing Ori. Maybe I don't need Ori on my SSD. Maybe I can just stream that. Maybe I'm not too worried about some of those games that are available in Game Pass Ultimate or via XCloud. And so I wanted to just note that Microsoft may have multiple contingency plans to address concerns of cost or address concerns of storage. And they seem to have a plan for every step of the way. And I find that to be all the more encouraging, back to our original point of confidence.
Those are great points, dude. Those are actually fantastic points. I mean, being that everyone got their particular points across, and I think that we've covered a significant amount of what we've seen in regards to what was shown today. Now, I actually have a list of the confirmed specs. Now, this is I don't necessarily know if the chat actually wants me to read this. I mean, you can easily go to any of the websites and their there for you to see. And obviously, I think it'll probably be a boring conversation. Real quick, though, I want to get caught up on the super chats, but I kind of want to pose this question. So while I get caught up in the super chats, you guys have a chance to, kind of generate your thoughts, because it is a bit of a perplexing question. And again, when you talk about Microsoft, I think that you almost have to bring Sony into the conversation and vice versa. I think that if you're talking about Sony, even though Sony is a very, won this generation handily with 110 plus million consoles sold and a very rabid fan base and a very stout lineup of first party. But bringing it back to Microsoft, if we're going to talk about Microsoft next generation, we have to talk about Sony next generation. And my question to the panel, even though it might sound simple, I think it's gonna be a thought-provoking answer from everybody. We talked about early on Microsoft, and Luke, I want to keep going back to you on this, because you keep mentioning confidence, and I think that that's the key word that needs to be put into the forefront of any Microsoft conversation, because they are confident, and they're doing things that we never seen them do, at least in the last generation. That's the current generation we're in, and it seems like they're certainly walking to the beat of their own drum. But my question to the panel is, with all of the information prior to today, Sony has been coy. Sony has been silent. Sony has been keeping their cards close to the vest. We've heard through different articles, through their their financial officer, that they're currently sitting and they're in a waiting pattern to see what Microsoft is going to do regarding the price. It seems like it's not a confident Sony. It certainly seems like a different type of Sony. My question is, with the new information that has been put out there, that is going to be talked about at least for the next week by every podcaster or every media outlet from here to Baton Rouge and back, does this put more pressure on Sony to do something, or at least say something? So while you guys think about that, let me just get caught up on the super chats. First of all, JD Gamer, once again being as generous as he is, he drops an additional $5 super chat, and he says this: call Sony the track star, because they've been running away from the events for the past 2 years. My question is, how do you think RT on XSX versus the RTX will be? Dude, I would be really speculating if I had an answer for that. But great question. If anyone in the chat or anyone on the panel wants to address that, by all means. Suicide King, what's up, dude? Thank you for being here. He drops a very generous $5 super chat, and he says, "Hey, Boom, had a short work day and just saw all of this XS news. Immediately jumped on to your show to the latest info. Glad to be here live." Well, thanks for being here, dude. Super appreciate that. JD Gamer once again drops a $2 super chat and says, "I think Microsoft just told Sony to hold their beer." Yes, some people would suggest that. Elemental P drops a $5 super chat, and he says, "I can't wait to see Final Fantasy VII Remake running on the Series X next year." Yeah, worth the wait indeed. And I believe that's it. So, Luke, let me go to you first on this, dude. Obviously, I think it's fair to say, when you're talking about one company that's your competitor in Sony, and when you're talking about Microsoft, you have to bring up the PlayStation 5, and we have relatively almost no information. Now, we do know that they have a great SSD, because they showed Spider-Man running on it compared, and it was ultra fast. That's awesome. We know that it's going to be using Zen 2, right? So that's awesome as well. With the RDNA 2, they haven't confirmed it. We're not sure if it's RDA 1, it's RDA 2. Is it a hybrid of sorts? We don't know. But in your professional opinion on the subject matter at hand, with this amount of information that has been completely megaton bomb dropped on the industry, what kind of pressure is Sony feeling right now?
Well, they're under tremendous pressure simply by a position that they put themselves in. In being so successful, what everybody looks towards is, are you able to replicate it and do it a second time? Something the gaming industry has shown isn't always something that companies are easily able to do. Their choice to go silent has served them well in this generation, but it absolutely demands attention the moment they do speak and show something. When they dropped those PS5 specs a month or so ago, a while back, it didn't have the same, I suppose, mind share or vibe perhaps that this Microsoft method is giving it, but their silence means that once they do speak, everyone's going to be tuned in, and the first thing that they're going to be doing is plopping up that chart, comparing it to what we now know for the Xbox Series X. Regardless of if it's more or less powerful than the rumored Series S or whatnot, they're going to compare it to the best of the best, and they're going to start doing plot diagrams and figuring out cost analyses and whatnot. I would expect Sony, because they are under this pressure, to rely heavily on sequels going into next gen. They had a wonderful slate of new IP that was generated in this current gen, with Ghost of Tsushima looking incredible to kind of round out PS4. But what that means for PS5 is there's not a whole lot of new IP that we are aware of at this time, whereas Microsoft has brought in so many new studios to bring in so many new IP. And there's going to be a lot of comparative charts. So the long-winded answer to your simple yet complex question is that Sony is under tremendous pressure for a very good reason. Part of that is their fault. The other part is Microsoft knew that they either needed to attack or die, because status quo was not going to work. And they chose, as we've said, to go full throttle into this next generation. And from my perhaps biased standpoint, in that I host an Xbox podcast myself and that I prefer playing on my Xbox, I like the IP that's currently there. I'm so encouraged by Microsoft's approach that, yeah, my eyes are tuned in on Sony, to the nth degree, because I want to know, can you top it? Are you able? And if you're able to, that only benefits me on either side. There's a lot.
You're going to get both consoles anyway.
Absolutely, man. I want to play games. So yeah, yes, I'm excited, and I love the pressure that Sony's under, and part of that's their own fault, and that's a great thing.
Excellent. Real quick, I know 10%. I want to get to you because I know you got to jump out of here in a second. And Ainsley, I'll call you next. So I'm not sure how much time you have, because we're nearly done. I understand there's going to be a 90-minute show. We're going to be attacking this from every angle on tonight's primetime gaming. But 10%. Let me ask your opinion on this. And obviously, the question is simple: is Sony under pressure? Has Sony pigeonholed themselves? Has Sony painted themselves into a corner by being as coy and silent as they have since December 12th, 2019, when Phil Spencer got up on stage and completely shocked the gaming world?
Yeah. Forewarning, my little 18-month-old woke up. He was taking his nap. So
okay, not a problem.
If you hear him, I apologize. But yeah, no, they're on the ropes. In fact, this has gone on so long without them saying anything. I don't know when they're going to. I don't believe they have the power. We've heard nothing of the games coming out. They will have games. Sony's traditionally, they don't release their quote unquote bangers until later on in the generation. And then it seems like they'll come out all at once. So they might not have the games. We don't know that, but they might not. I don't really know what angle they're going to take, to be honest with you. So they're in between a rock and a hard place now. I mean, we've heard nothing. We've gotten a Verge article in a logo. And that article is now like a year old, pretty much. And it's bad, man. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I want to find out more because, like I say all the time, there's going to be something I can't get anywhere else. I'm going to want the console for it. So I hope it's a dang good console. So I'm hoping they open their mouth quick, but I don't know when they're going to. As a matter of fact, I'd venture to say it might not be for a while yet. Because if they don't have news as, oh yeah, guys, we're more powerful, or hey, we got better games, they got to find a really nice angle to take. So, I mean, every time Xbox comes out with news like what they just did today, I further throw my hands up in the air. I'm like, well, what the heck is Sony going to do? So personally, I think they need to open their mouth soon or find a really impressive angle to take to try to I don't know, impress people over what we just heard today. So.
Well, listen, thanks again for being here. Super appreciate it. And obviously, I'll see you tonight on the new episode of Primetime Gaming. Enjoy the rest of your day, my brother. And once again, thank you for being here. Ainsley, again, I want to get you on out of here because we are closing in on an hour, 90-minute show, which is what I expected it to be today because of, obviously I have the live show tonight. Ains, as someone that covers the industry, you cover Nintendo, you cover Sony, and you cover Microsoft. And I think that you do a very fair job on Seasoned Gaming. I read a lot of your stuff, and I think that it's very fair written. But I also think that it's as not only as a fan of the industry, but someone that covers it professionally. I just want to hear your points on what do you think is going on at Sony right now? Like, obviously, I think it's safe to assume, and again, I don't want to be make an ass out of you and me, but I want to say this: I think it's safe to assume that the Game Awards completely shocked a lot of people, Sony being one of them. As a matter of fact, we've heard rumblings. We've actually heard rumblings that Jeff Keighley himself was taken aback on what they showed, because from what they were doing, when they were doing the practice test, it was something totally different. And I think that he himself might have been, and again, this is just rumor, but I think he himself might have been a little taken aback. And the shock and awe of that particular situation seems to have a lasting effect. For you personally, as someone that does cover this professionally, is Sony in trouble? But why are they continuing to be so silent? And has this new information put even more pressure on them?
Yeah, so I think you mentioned the Game Awards. One of the funniest kind of scenes there, right, was Mark Cerny sitting in the front row, and when Phil's on stage, talking about Series X, you could see Mark Cerny taking notes, which is always interesting, right?
Yes.
But I think Sony saying, thank you for the comments, by the way. I think Sony saying Sony is in trouble is a little too broad. They have the benefit of a few things, right? The PlayStation ecosystem is well emboldened across the world. They have a fantastic global distribution network, better than Microsoft's or Xbox's. And they have the reputation coming off the PS4, which I believe Lucas already spoke to very well. So all of that is known, right? That's not a secret. Now, what is different here, at least this is just my personal feeling is, and I've said this before, is it's weird to see Sony and PlayStation so tepid.
Yes, I agree.
They're usually very aggressive to the point of arrogance sometimes. Some people like that. Some people don't. It doesn't matter really where you stand. That's just the fact. And I think that it's a weird time for PlayStation right now. You had Layden leaving under kind of suspicious terms. We never got the real full story of what happened there. You got someone like Jim Ryan, who himself is an interesting choice to lead PlayStation into next gen. You've got obviously PlayStation 5, and they're just not showing anything, which you guys have already talked about. I said a long time ago, mid last year on the Lord's podcast, that you would be a fool to think that people like Phil Spencer, the people that are on the upper executive leadership of both Xbox and PlayStation, don't have a very good idea of what each other are doing. You've got the same relationship with AMD. Sure, there's NDAs that have to be, taken into account here. But if you believe that they don't know, like Phil Spencer doesn't know what the PS5 is going to look like, or what its features are, I think you're fooling yourself. And so I think it's very telling to me that Microsoft and Xbox are being so confident. And what that tells me is that Sony is trying to figure out, taking their time, figuring out how they need to message the PS5. Because if they can't come in saying we have X, Y, and Z launch titles, right? And I don't want to go on too long here, but if you look at their first party studios, just the timing of their releases does not line up with the PS5's launch.
Right. Which is why we're hearing that, and you've heard this, you've actually talked about this not only on your shows, but you've written about it, how this is why they're positioning themselves with third-party deals.
Correct. Yeah. So if you take that, you take into account they probably can't play the power card. You take into account they probably can't play the price card. They have to be very careful when they first come out and truly show the PS5 and how they message it. And if there's one thing PlayStation is good at, they're good at many things, but if there's one thing they're excellent at, right, it's messaging. They know how to get their fan base excited. And so what I expect is to kind of gloss over, you know, the very deep technical specs. I think they're going to say it's super powerful, ray tracing, all these things to make it sound as if it's matched on the Series X, when a deep dive will probably show otherwise. But what they're going to do is find a way to show some footage of titles that'll get fans excited and really kind of forget about the fact that it's not the most powerful, it's not cheaper, things of that nature. But I think that's a really hard thing to do. And I think that's why PlayStation is being the way they are and taking their time and waiting to figure out how to correctly message it. But they have the games to show. All they have to do, right, is come out with a 3-minute video of a really high spec Horizon Zero Dawn 2 or Spider-Man 2. That's all and fans will go nuts. That's just how they are.
And you know what? I'll be one of them, because those are 2 games that I'm really looking forward to, because I loved Horizon. It was one of my favorite games this generation. Probably easily in the top 5 for me personally. Spider-Man, definitely in the top 10. Loved it. Platinum that game a couple of weeks ago. Really, really enjoyed it. You know what? You know what? I want to get your opinion on this, because how I think they're going to do it is not put their specs up against the Xbox Series X. I don't think they're going to do that. I think what they're going to do is they're going to put their specs against themselves, and they're going to show how much more advanced this console is as opposed to the PS4 Pro. I think that's how I would do it, because if you put up side by side, you know, graphic, based on what we're seeing, the potential to be outclassed is going to be huge. So how do you spin that? Well, how I would spin it, and how we know that their marketing can be, very forward thinking or thought provoking, is not put it up against the Xbox, because you've said this, I've said it, I think Luke have said it as well. If they had the power, they would have said so.
Right.
If they would have had the speed, they would have said so already. They'd have been like, nope, sorry, Xbox, we're better. Here you go, in your face, because that's how they've been. So how I would do it is, and I think how they know they have to do it, is don't put up specs against the Xbox Series X, because quite frankly, this is just an assumption, but it's going to be a night and day difference. How I would do it is put it up against the PlayStation 4 Pro and say, look, folks, all those amazing first-party games that you played and they looked amazing on this old console, well, look what we can do with this. It's 4 times as more powerful, and these games are going to look even better. I mean, does that sound like a potential idea?
Oh, I think that's exactly what they do. You focus on with any situation, you focus on your strengths, right? Play to your strengths. Their strengths are their fan base, and they have the narrative around exclusives, and those exclusives are God of War, Spider-Man. Everyone knows them, right? Focus on what the PS5 is going to do for those existing games and what it'll mean for their future exclusive titles. That's exactly where Sony's going to focus.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. And closing out the show, and also this particular topic, Archimedes, I'm going to get to you on this. Obviously, everyone is going to be looking to Sony, and I think that's all camps. I think that is the Xbox community, to see what they bring to the table. I think the PlayStation community currently is starving to death of any information outside of a logo and a Mark Cerny quote from a year ago. I think we want to know more, and I say we because I already have the money for the PlayStation 5 and I cannot wait to pre-order it. But I would like to know something, and I think that the media, the gaming media at hand, also is going to be looking to Sony to do something, to say something. In your opinion, has Sony painted themselves into a corner? I'm not saying that that's doom and gloom for Sony, not at all. The PlayStation 5 is going to be fine, but the silence is now deafening. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I would like, of course, Sony to release some news and get me excited as I am for the Xbox, because I will be getting both day one, no doubt. But I think Ainsley already covered it pretty well. Outside of the US and the UK, the PlayStation brand is absolutely dominating the video game market. Here in Germany, the PlayStation outsold the Xbox 5-1.
Wow.
This is and it has a huge fan base. And the only thing they need to do is to show bit of a footage from the next God of War or Horizon Zero Dawn, and the fan base itself will go crazy. And considering the video game market worldwide, I don't think they are in trouble. They are missing to get the hardcore video game base, getting them excited. This is what they are missing right now.
Right.
But as you already touched on it, they are under new management, and they are also restructuring their organization. Yeah, they were previously structured in 3 different departments: the American department, the European department, and the Asian market. And they are uniting them, and I think getting mixed up in this reorganization, restructuring with such an aggressive Microsoft is something that caught them off foot, and I think that they are currently trying to find the right narrative, and I think they will start talking about the PlayStation 5 once Microsoft is starting about next generation games. They will try to focus on the narrative on games, and not really on the hardware and technical side. It's basically the same what they did with the PS4 Pro. They had that PS4 Pro hardware reveal event, and after that they suddenly got silent because Microsoft was dominating the news with better hardware news, and then they focused back on the games, and it worked well for them. And I think that this is the same narrative they will try for the PS5. Once we start seeing games for next generation consoles, they will start showing something. This is what I think is going to happen.
Well, that's a great point, and again, this has been a great show. I do have another Xbox Factor podcast scheduled with Zemi Games tomorrow, which is going to be only about a 60-minute show. I had talked about that on the Iron Lords podcast, and I'm going to be doing one additional stream per week to kind of help people deal with the anxiety of certain world situations that are going on, and it's always fun to kind of put that stuff behind you. Even though it's there, it's good to just get away for a minute and talk about video games, come back, hang out, have some fun talking about gaming, and hang out in the chat with your other buddies. And I hope that I can bring some of that excitement and fun while we deal with real world crisis, if you will. But this has been a great show. 90 minutes flew by. We were able to get a lot of information out, but more importantly, my guests completely knocked it out of the park as always. And of course, let's get into the outros. Now, obviously, Tempest Sun, you know where you can find him, and you're going to hear him again this evening on Primetime Gaming. That show goes live at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my YouTube channel. Let's start with Luke. Luke, first of all, you dropped a new video on your channel regarding Xbox right before this news. So I'm assuming at some point or another you're going to do a follow-up video talking about what transpired today, because you do put out fantastic content. Do me a favor, dude. Where can people follow you on Twitter? But more importantly, check out your incredible shows that you put on.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, I did. I host a podcast, and the podcast goes out every Monday. It's called the Xbox Expansion Pass.
It's fantastic.
Thank you so much, man. I had just this week, I had a solo indie developer come on and talk about being a one-man studio. He developed a game called Infliction Extended Cut. It's a horror title. I have a couple guests lined up over the next few weeks that if you're
Nice.
a fan of some recent Xbox exclusives, you might enjoy. But it's called the Xbox Expansion Pass. You can find it on all your podcast services. That's my main content output there.
Okay.
And then, of course, you can find me on Twitter at Insipid Ghost. And I do put up little mini videos here and there, and I have a blast with them. But yeah, if any of that amazing audience would check out the Xbox Expansion Pass, it would mean the world to me.
Oh, dude! Well, I think you're gonna start getting some foot traffic through there, because you do put on a great show, and it's very easy to listen to. And I want to say thank you for being here, dude. Super appreciate you taking the time to kind of hang out with us. And Ains, I first of all, this is great to have you back on the show. I know we've been trying to to get our schedules together. It just so happens that Real World Events has opened the door to have you on a podcast, and this was, of course, an impromptu kind of a situation because obviously this was very big news to break, and I'm going to be covering it again from a different angle and some different aspects of it on tonight's primetime gaming, so it's not regurgitated. But dude, you have a great website. You guys do great shows. Do me a favor, dude. Tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, but more importantly, check out Seasoned Gaming.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, Boom. So no, it was fun. It is kind of hilarious that we always try to sync up, and the one time I can join is because I'm literally working from home due to the coronavirus. But anyway, no, great to be on. Great to chat with you guys. Just seasongaming.com. I'm kind of everywhere. I don't hide. You've got my real name. I'm online on Porsche Power on everywhere as well. So if you want to play games, I'm always down. Just hit me up. We do a weekly podcast we call the Bitcast. That's out there. In fact, our new episode, of course, just went up this morning before this news dropped.
Of course.
As it always does, right? And then, we'll be we've covered a lot of this stuff. I have some videos out there on Series X. We have articles on it. So, if you like any of that stuff, just check out the site. It's out there. But truly appreciate it, and hope to be on again soon.
Oh yeah, definitely. We got to definitely a couple of us, being that you guys are going to be working from home. I'm going to be knocking at your doors. We have to, this is the best way of doing social distancing, if you will. We can just do podcasts and still feel like we're hanging out, which is
podcasting
awesome.
Gaming, man. We've been prepared for this our whole lives.
We certainly have. Dude, I actually said that on Twitter the other day. I got a lot of laugh out of that. And Archimedes, want to thank you for being here all the way from Germany. I'm not sure what time it is there, but I'm sure that it's certainly a lot later than 1:42 p.m. here on the East Coast. And I want to thank you for always bringing it 100 every time you've been on the show. And quite frankly, you've been back and forth quite a bit, as a matter of fact. And it's great to have you back on.
Yeah.
Do me a favor, dude. Tell everyone where they can follow you on social media, but also check out your YouTube channel.
Yeah, first, thank you for having me. I was working at home too today, and will be doing that the whole week. And it's always great to have such news coming out and distract you a little bit from what is happening out in the world. Check my new YouTube channel out. You can find it under Boxenberger, and the same, you can find me on Twitter at Boxenberger. I'm always discussing games and topics of the industry, so hit me up there. And yeah, thanks for having me again.
Well, listen, it was great to have you back on, and obviously this will not be the last call for everyone that's on today's panel. I'll be reaching out to you at a later date to talk gaming, whether that be Xbox gaming, PlayStation gaming, or Nintendo gaming. At the end of the day, we are all gamers. But listen, I want to wish everybody a great day. Tune in tonight to the new episode of Primetime Gaming, where a good portion of it is probably going to be talking about the big news that dropped today. But again, I am going to take it on from a different angle and bring up some aspects that we were unable to get to make sure that the show is new, fresh, and you don't tune out once it starts. Thanks everyone for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe, be kind, and of course, two things that my dad always taught me when I was a kid that I love saying, just as we close out every show, two things that I wish people would do more of. One, treat others how you want to be treated. And the second one, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. You live by those rules, and I can guarantee you're going to have an awesome day. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you this evening.